Hey guys, here's the gear for today. I'm finally getting around to a couple of things that I've been wanting to for a while. And they are the Smash Soap by Mammoth. It's in the Tusk base, which is tremendous. The 46 gap Wolfman WR1. Why am I going to that one? Because the last few shaves, I've actually been using my 54 gap, telling you guys it was my 46. I made appropriate notes in the description of the video to correct that, but I'm not going to re-record the video, right? So that'll just have to stay as is. But at least the data in the description and the title of the video and stuff is accurate. And so since I'd been using the 54 and saying it was the 46, I figure I'd bring out the 46 now for this one. And I'm going to be using it with that same Personna comfort coated blade that I used with the 54, saying that it was a great match, just to see if it's a good match for this 46 as well. And then another thing I just kind of got an itch for is this wonderful little brush, short handle by Whiskers, but the knot is just tremendous. It's a great value if you can't afford maybe a declaration knot or some of those fancy hand-tied knots. Then this one is it's not El Cheapo, but it's cheaper than those guys. And this is the Oumo Manchuria Super High Density, I think is the way it's all laid out on their site. And boy, it's got really soft tips, easy splay. I mounted the knot about as high as I could, and that's perfect for me. If you want a little bit more backbone, just sink it a little deeper into the handle. And so I'll be using this, the Personna blade. These were sent to me just out of the kindness of a fellow shaver's heart. It may have been Seth. And I have been soaking this guy for a nice quiet while. And you can see he's not super jelly. You can see the clumping, but it's not a gel kind of clumping. And so this particular knot doesn't get all spongy, that sort of thing when those tips get wet. But they are fully saturated with the amount of time they've had to be in the water. Now, how can you ever tell my 54 apart from my 46? Here is the 54 I've used the last couple of shaves. Here's the 46. I generally keep the handles. Of course, you can intermix the handles, but just for my own sanity, I like both handles. Probably like this one a little bit better. But I just decided to, for now, keep the handles on the individual ones, and it kind of helps my memory. But the key factor is the top cap. On the 46 here, it's got that nice basic polish from a while back that Wolfman does, and then this one has been brushed just a little bit, and that's how I can tell it's the 54. Of course, I could switch the top caps, and then I'd really be mixed up. Because Wolfman, he doesn't usually print. It would be great if he did etch or engrave the bottom with the gap, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? But he leaves it for us to keep track. And so these are WR1s. And we will be putting the 54 down with that aristocrat type handle and using the, this is the more standard knurled handle from Wolfman. All right. We do have a few days of growth. I went and did some moving and stuff on the weekends, a lot of work, didn't really have time to shave. I was tired. So we've got this mild razor, has some work cut out for it. The Personna Comfort Coated Blade is one that I've used before, and it came in different packaging. It had little wax envelopes, with it, but the blade didn't look like this. It actually said Personna. And so if this is some new version where they're not printing the same thing on the blade, then, it might be the same blade. I think it's probably the same blade. But it could be different. Persona's really guilty at confusing the shaving hobby with different names for the same blade and that sort of thing. It had a little bit of roughness when I used it the first time, but then it smoothed out really nicely on the second time, and I think this is now the third use, so it should be quite smooth. If I were to use that same 54 gap razor, who knows how it'll be on the 46. As we start to get really mild, then you start to notice the differences in the razor blades, they stand out more, because like a bell curve, once you get to one side of the curve, one end of the curve, either too aggressive or too mild, then the differences really start to stand out more than they would if you were using a mid-range gapped razor. So the Smash is a peach type alcoholic beverage that he used kind of as a model or inspiration for this soap. I've had it for weeks and maybe even a month and a half now. And for a while there, my nose wasn't working, and so I wanted to wait to where I could smell it. I'm not at 100%, but I'm pretty good with my smeller, and I do smell that nice peach. And there are some background notes in there. It definitely keeps it more earthy instead of being kind of bright and punchy and a little too much novelty peach, you know. So looking forward to watching other notes come out, because I haven't used it yet. It's brand new. And we'll see how it comes out in the rest of the shave. I'm going to use my usual lather bowl printed by Roger Quinn for me, the creator of it. You can look at the description of my video for a URL to download the plans. If you have a 3D printer, then you can print them up yourself. If you don't, there are printers available online where you can contract with somebody to print something for you and then mail it to you. If you've never done that before, SugarDaddyShaves.com has a few testimonials from you guys who have had that done and then let me know how it went. And I put those online for other people to be edified, so that they can learn what some good reputable places are, that kind of thing, what to expect, different settings that were used and all that. So on we go with this guy. I'm going to get my face wet. I did decide to do a little face wash here with just a regular bar soap, because with so many days skipped, there's going to be more oils and stuff on my skin than usual, and I didn't want that to mess up with the lather, so I went ahead and did a face wash. Usually it's just kind of a normal amount of oil, and so I just let the first pass of my lather take care of that, but today I didn't. Shaking out most of the water, just what I do, and leaving a little bit in there. Lightly wet is what I call it. 25 seconds is probably a good amount of time to spend lathering up here. That's 10 seconds. I started at 30, so we'll go to 55. I may not need to go to 55, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. And there we go. And we did end up kind of getting some extra coming out. Now, something that I have done before and I've seen other people do is turn the soap sideways. Get your brush really wet, turn your soap sideways and go at it. And that's usually for overloaders. And what happens is that when your brush is really wet and it goes to pick up some of that light soap, that light bubbly stuff, that tends to run out if your soap is sideways. And so then gradually you're working through the soap with the brush and the wet stuff's falling out. And so now the paste kind of starts to develop, and bam, you've got some nice stuff on your brush. I personally think that's a little bit of a waste to let that lather kind of run out. But hey, sometimes it's fun to do different things, especially if you're just trying to get rid of a soap. Or you use it up, try something new. That could be a way of loading that just kind of works very naturally with your own technique. Using this as just to kind of apprehend the scent kind of in the beginning here. Very nice. Clean the side of the container. The threading, clean that off. So this is supposed to be reminiscent of, it was a fall scent it was brought out in the fall, and I think it definitely works in that time frame. It's very nice. It's kind of a classy peach, if you will, with maybe a little bit of bourbon and maybe some vanilla in there or something to that effect. And so this is how much the brush pulled out, at least visibly, and you can never really predict. Sometimes you've got plenty on your brush, you just can't see it. some of those other notes, some of the spices are really starting to come out now that it's starting to become a lather. Definitely plenty of earthiness to this peach. Doesn't take too long before it looks like it might be ready if you were kind of new to shaving. But with experience, I know that we've still got some more water to add. We still got a little bit of mixing to do because we have water and soap that still needs to be combined. If I were to take this right to my face, it would start producing it would start producing lather that would kind of drip and flop off my face. And I could keep adding water to my brush and more lather would be generated. And so what I'm doing is doing it in the bowl so that that lather can be contained. And we're starting to increase in volume now. Add a little bit more water. Recently did a video, and I'm guessing it's going to be published before you see this one. My daily shave videos are at a little bit of a delay of production because I have got several of them kind of sitting in line waiting to be pushed out, but a video that just tells you guys about something shaving in general, that's not really time related. It doesn't have to be pushed out in conjunction with any other videos. And so you will probably have already seen on my channel, if you're a subscriber, my video about the high-end badger knots like this Manchurian knot. I showed several declaration grooming knots. Here's another Manchurian. The Oumo was mentioned as well in there as a very nice competitor to those knots that I just mentioned, and it's cheaper. You're not going to get the customer service with Oumo available at AliExpress.com. You're not going to get quite as good customer service because Scott at Declaration is just going to be crazy dedicated to your satisfaction as his customer. And so you can just make a purchase from him with great confidence. I'm going to bet that Rob at Chisel and Hound is similar. I've never had a Mozingo brush. His artisan type, hand-tied brushes. And here's the thing, there's a myth about hand-tied, because even if you go to Oumo, where it's a big old, company factory kind of thing, definitely not a small artisan, those knots are still hand-tied. It's just, by kind of factory personnel or, trained people, but it's just not that small business kind of vibe. And so hand-tied is really kind of a misnomer if you only use it to refer to the small artisan, type knots, type premium knots. Well, this is looking tremendous. You saw how cloudy, how puffy cloudy and voluminous the lather is getting as we continue to add water and work it up. The only gripe I have with this handle is that it's so short that my fingers end up needing rinsing on a regular basis during the shave. So during that video I just mentioned, I talk about those different knots. Is it worth it to buy a Declaration knot or, some expensive knot like that, or the Manchurian, or, whatever. Is it worth it? What are some things to think about? I talked about the bleaching of the tips and other attributes about the finest badger brushes that are used in these processes. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, then check that one out on my channel. Haven't quite figured out the title of it yet, but it might be something like our high-end badger brush is worth it, or something like that. So that lather looks terrific. Let's just for your sake, we can look at how it behaves. so that as you're mixing up your own lather, if you want to try to duplicate this kind of consistency, then maybe you have these visual cues as you watch it move. You can know that you can head for this and know when you've arrived, when you've gotten there by its appearance. This particular base does have a slight gloss to it, and glossiness is not necessarily an indicator of proper doneness. Some people think that, but it's not true. I mean, for certain soaps it's true, but it's not true for all soaps. There are a few soaps out there that get glossy at a certain time, and if that happens to be where you like your lathers, then that's really nice, isn't it? It's almost like a turkey pop indicator when the lather's done, right? But most soaps are not going to be that way. Splash a little bit of water now on my face, and we will lather up. I am using to wipe my hands my 42 towel from Barrister and Man. He puts out one of those every once in a while. All right. 42 is a soap, a scent that he's done. It's English in its culture and its design, and so tea is a part of the smell. I think it's got a little spiciness like pepper or something like that in there too. Well, you can see through this lather all the stubble that we've got to deal with. Well, I think this worked out really well with the pre-cleaning of my face, because in the past a long stubble beard like that kills my lather, and I think it's those oils. And so since I cleaned out those oils from my face, they didn't attack and prevent my lather from developing properly. So it's looking good. Like I said, really soft tips with this brush, and you can see it moving, not really shoving my skin around in an uncomfortable way. Easy flex. Those are my priorities. And so that video that I've been talking about, and I tell you this in the video, it is from the viewpoint of my own preferences. And so the different declaration batches that I showed you, the B4, the B9A, the B13 were especially enjoyable batches that match my needs. I also showed a B11, which is not quite as good as those others I mentioned, but still enjoyable. And it's maybe a middle of the road brush that, you know, other people might like. And then I had a B7 that I showed you guys. And it was my least favorite of those because it's got more backbone. And I like something more kind of that luxurious side of softness and easy display. And so the B7 is kind of not that. And one of my main points in the video was talking about how just because it's a high-end brush, just because you have to pay a lot to get it, doesn't mean that it's going to be good for you. And that's tricky because they cost so much that you really need to do your research before you make those kind of purchases to make sure that's going to fit. Make sure it's going to be a good fit. Well, this has no tugging. It's moving through the hair nicely. Well, almost no tugging. Just a tiny, tiny bit. It's really quite comfortable. And that's remarkable because it's so mild. It seems like this blade is going to be a good one for this razor, but we'll have to look at it in other passes, not just this first one. The B1 brush is a prized trophy by some brush collectors. It's very rare at this point because it's his oldest batch. I was able to get one, but I had done my research and I knew that it might have too much backbone for me, and sure enough, that's how it panned out. So it's not a brush I like to use. Expensive does not equal necessarily a brush that I'm going to like to use. And so if I was an uninformed person and just saw that price tag, didn't do the research, I'd be really disappointed thinking I had purchased an upgrade when I really hadn't. All right, so do a little bit of rinsing here. And so I was just warning people about that kind of thing in the video. Because when you get to the quality, the excellent quality of Manchurian and Declaration Grooming, and probably, you know, Mozingo and some of the, and then maybe I think there's probably a couple other people that I mentioned. I just haven't had experience with them. The quality is just terrific. And it is going to be a step up if you compare it to things like these cheap Badger brushes from eBay or Amazon. But I just want people to do the research so that they can learn about the batches with Declaration, learn about the different version numbers that are important with the Manchurian line, so that they can make good decisions. And that's what I did. And by and large, I did end up very happy with the different batches that I was able to procure. And I could save money, and I did almost always by going off the secondary market. All right, so now comes the real shave, and I'm just knocked over my water cup, so I have no idea how much water I used. I think it was about 22 milliliters of water or so that was used in this shave to make the lather. Since that first one was kind of, oh, you know what, that went very nicely. I was going to do the with the grain again, but I just could feel that I could go right to the cross grain because the stubble had been nicely removed from that first pass. So this, again, this blade, it's an inexpensive blade. You can get a lot of them for low money, and it's working really well in this mild head. So that's a great combination. Wow. This could even receive the amazing mark on my little database here. I've got a very good mark that I'll give to the relationship between a razor and a blade. And a lot of the good blades get that one. But this one, this is really nice. Now, the only reason I'm not going to rate it that way this time, I'm going to give it a very good for this shave, because so much of the pass on that first, a lot of the hair was taken off in that first pass, and that's not a good, reliable indicator of the excellence of the blade and razor in terms of being amazing. And it's very good for sure, and it's a great combo so far. I think it's going to pan out really nicely, but before I give it the top marks, I'm going to need to use this combo in a more normal shave where it's just a day of growth or something like that. Good rinse there after the second pass. It helps to soothe my skin a little bit because I use cooler water. It lets my fingers work over my skin to kind of tell where patches of stubble might be. It gauges irritation, things like that. So multi-purposes there on the kind of partial rinse that I do. And boy, the 25 seconds has given me tons of lather, probably twice as much as I need. I've now got the third pass on my brush, and I've probably got 2 or 3 passes left in the bowl. So the Tusk is it's one of my favorite bases, because this kind of lather that I'm getting is ultra slick. It's creamy while it's really slick. So when I keep pushing water into it, it still has a nice range where it stays creamy. Now, obviously, if you keep pushing more water into it, it'll eventually break. But it holds up very nicely up until that point, and it's a nice wide band where you can keep adding water, and then you get into that where now you know you've got ultra slickness and ultra creaminess, but it's not so narrow that if you add just a touch too much water, now it dies, you know. And so that's something that I like to see in a soap base, and Ben certainly has nailed it. I honestly can't really imagine him getting a better soap base. I can't really imagine him sitting down at the table and saying, well, this one needs improvement. What am I going to do? You know, I just don't think this one really needs improvement at all. I mean, the only thing I could possibly imagine would be if he was able to come up with some kind of formulation where you could get this same kind of lather with even less soap. you know, and so then it would be an economical type improvement. But I don't really see room for any performance improvement at all, because it's just super slick. The razor gliding easily around, and it's a nice band of, like I was saying, the possibility, the ease of hitting it right. There's a lot of wiggle room so that you don't miss it. I did have a miss stroke where I had right around, yeah, that redness little spot right there. I had a little flick where I went against the grain a little bit too much, a little bit too early in my shave. And so that's what that redness is. And I can feel it just a little bit, but it's not something that's going to last very long at all. So the scent here, yeah, it's not strong. It's very smooth. It's not strong in the sense of overwhelming or anything like that. It's an ambient kind of scent. And the peach is definitely not any kind of toy peach or, smelling like some kind of even a peach essential oil, bright and fruity, that kind of thing. That's not what it is. It's got these other notes that are keeping it earthy and grounded. I do really enjoy it. It's got enough of those other notes that I think I could use this repetitively without kind of getting peached out or anything like that. So yeah, it does kind of smell like a peach cocktail. And that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah, I definitely like that. I could probably like the cologne, but the colognes are expensive, and I've got too many as it is. So but I tell you what, if I saw this cologne for a great price on the secondary market, I'd probably really look at my wallet and see if I could pick it up. Very friendly, approachable, warm. It's not so heavy that I think it would be out of place in the summer, for me at least. And so I think it's a year-round scent, but with with those kind of earthy notes, I think it's especially at home in the cooler weather climates. Very nice. Yeah, definitely worth waiting for, worth getting. Ben's a terrific guy, and his sales for his stuff here, and this is why he chose the Mammoth as his mascot, as his kind of icon, was the elephant in the room is human trafficking, and a portion of his sales go to support organizations that fight against human trafficking. And so I think that's just a worthy cause, and he's just a good guy. He's hilarious online, playing around with him. He's a smart guy, and he's funny. It's terrific. So yeah, Smash is a big success. We could say it's a smash, of course, but yeah, that's just very enjoyable, very, very nice. And boy, I could see because of the kind of warmth and earthiness, and then the peach twist on that, I could really see so many different post-shave products working well with it. Something woody would go great with this. The 63 here, the smokiness and the woodiness of the Prix de Provence number 63 would go well. I've got some flying hide as well. I believe the orangeness of the Lucky Tiger aftershave splash tonic thing. I think that would go very well too. You know what? Why don't we do the flying hide today? Try that out from Noble Otter. This is from a while back. I think they quit with their flying hide or something. That was, I think there's some people seeking some of the flying hide gear to try to collect it. All right. Yeah. What a good smell. Really nice. And I have seen other peach scents, and I can see room for this, adding a little touch of floral or something, but I'm so glad that that's not jumping out to me. If it's in the list, then at least it's staying subtle and just being an accent. But I'm so glad, and I've smelled other scents that have done that, and I've been a little disappointed because that was the only part I didn't really like about it. And so it's absent here, and I'm so glad. It's just kind of an earthy, boozy peach. Maybe a little bit of dirt in a good way. Woods, you know, and then a little bit of vanilla, ambery kind of warmth to it, with the always in the background the peach as well. Almost like a roasted peach or something like that. Instead of that bright peach, like when you bite into a fresh one, almost like a roasty one that out of a peach pie or something. See, that's more of a smooth type scent, and that's more along the lines of what you get here. I really am enjoying the smash here. Now that I think about it, now that I kind of dry myself off after a good rinse, I kind of want to savor the smash a little bit longer. And so I'm going to put down the Flying Hide. With its leatheriness, I want to save it for a time when I really want to enjoy that. And so what I'm going to do is use something a little bit more generic. It's got a light masculine type scent. It's very therapeutic and moisturizing. Is this Aqua Velva Sensitive 5-in-1 Aftershave Balm. And my face is still very wet, and so just a little is going to go a long way. I don't need a ton of it for because of my oily skin for moisturizing benefit. And so I think that its flavor is a little bit more calm, and so I'll be able to really enjoy the smash. And the small scent that's on that, coincidentally, is working very well with the smash. So terrific shave here. Not only was the soap a great scent, but the performance of this Personna blade in the WR1, 46 gap for real this time. It was great. And it battled efficiently taking down 5 days of growth at least. And so people who tell you that you need to get an open comb or some kind of aggressive setting, most of my stubble was gone after that first pass. And so it is not required to get those kind of extremes in some cases. This is a more mild Wolfman razor than most people have at all. It's not anywhere near the standard range that he produces, and even it will very nicely. I could have just stuck with 2 passes if I wanted. It just took care of business really well. Yeah, I got a lot of lather left over here. Here's what this lovely little Manchurian badger looks like after a shave and after getting the towel stropping to kind of dry it out. And we'll just sit this in a nice ventilated area for drying for the next day. You can see how we don't get a lot of clumping here. Soft tips, but really without the gel to it. I kind of think it's right on the line there between softening, and then jelly. I think it's right before the softening, when the softening gets to the point where it starts to need to be jelly. I think that's where this knot happens to land. And for me, it's a wonderful place. Sure, I could use for it to be a little softer, but it's really so I don't miss it when I use this brush. It's very enjoyable. So there we go. Yeah, unfortunately, my stat on the water usage today is going to be off because I spilled it. I didn't put it in my usual place, and so I bumped it, knocked it over. Smash. Terrific. This blade in this razor, the Personna Comfort Coated in the 46 gap Wolfman WR1, was a wonderful match, even taking down a lot of growth. And the brush was terrific as usual. Used it a lot. I knew that the soap base was going to be great, so no doubt there. We'll see what comes up next. All right, guys, take care. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. All the best to you. Have a good day.